From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined as always with our super producer, Dylan, the Tennessee pal, Fagan. Most importantly, you are you. You are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. Welcome back, friends and neighbors, fellow conspiracy realists. This is July 10th, 2025. And as always, with our much beloved super producer returning from adventures out west in the territories, we couldn't think of a better way to start tonight's program than to learn a little bit about rutabagas. Dylan, if you could.
Yes, there were times.
Yes!
I'm sure you knew when I bit off more
rutabaga
than I could chew.
Yeah.
Wow. Bit off more rutabaga than I could chew. That's a mouthful.
I was really hoping you would try and match the voice there, Dylan. Like, rutabaga.
Yeah, Dylan is a tremendously gifted vocalist here. And Dylan, I got to thank you, man, first for going with that weird idea. And second, for being the grown guy in the conversation who said, we don't need to do the whole parody version of the song.
Just get to the rutabaga.
Yeah, just get to the rutabaga of the matter. Yeah.
We do have the full lyrics, though, if you are interested.
Is that Sinatra? Is that who that was?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Big rutabaga fan of Days of Yore.
Big rutabaga energy from Sinatra.
Right, and we are fans of yours, folks. We are going to hear from Faye, from Chef Ben, from Wayne, Kevin, and before we do any of that, we're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and we'll get to a conversation, an avian discourse with our pal Sloth.
And we'll be right back with Slothy.
And we have returned with Sloth. We haven't teased it enough. Boy, oh boy. Here it comes. He said, you know what? Actually, their name is not necessarily Sloth, but they start the email out with, "Hey, you guys," and said to read it as Sloth. So I've just taken a little bit of creative liberty and decided to bestow the nickname of Sloth onto this individual. Feel free to read that like Sloth. I did. The Goonies is one of those movies that I've seen like in pieces over the years, but probably not in one sitting and in the correct order. So I need to do something about that because it's a fun movie. Sloth goes on. "I've been watching and listening to you for like 13 years now. Thank you for your service, Sloth, and for your time invested. As Ben would say, time is the only currency that we truly have. Even gotten the oldest to the point where he wants to listen when it's just him and I in the truck. We love to hear that so very much. And part of the reason we try to keep it PG-13. I'm trying to be linear with my following. So sadly, at this moment, I'm still stuck in 2023. I think we all are a little bit stuck in 2023. But I promise, with lots of window time traveling to and from work now, I'll get caught up. Anyways, I always thought Noel was a bit nutty, how dare you, when he talks about his fear of birds. But then I saw this meme, had to share it. Keep up the great work." And said meme is as follows. It is a infographic with 3 columns. And in column 1, we have a little image of every planet in the solar system. Column 2, and it says planet at the top. That's the heading for that column. Column 2 is deaths. Column 3 is has birds. Can you guys guess where this one's going? Tops off, by the way, with wake up sheeple. Every planet except for Earth. No birds. Earth has birds. 0 deaths elsewhere. 120,315,672,896 plus deaths on planet Earth. Clearly, if we're doing a correlation causation kind of situation, entirely the fault of birds. That is at least the takeaway from this infographic. Guys, what do you think? Are they onto something here? Should we wake up?
The science is there.
Yep.
I got to tell you, hey, you guys, Sloth, this is a meme that I feel like pops up every so often because the science is just inarguably sound.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, Sloth and everybody else, we have yet to prove how many people died on Mars when it was, inhabited
When it was
millions,
a green paradise.
perhaps billions of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And which means we also have no proof for or against avian involvement in the fall of that ancient civilization.
Yes.
That's true. And, I've always found the connection between birds and dinosaurs fascinating, as laid out brilliantly and scientifically, unquestionably in the Jurassic Park series by the great scientist Michael Crichton. Yeah, so more unimpeachable science there. I just thought this would be a fun opportunity to talk about a few bird stories that came up when I was doing a little Googling after being inspired by Sloth's email. We did recently discuss on a previous Strange News episode the climate change implications on migratory birds. Ben, I believe that was one that you brought to the table. A study by BirdLife Greece showing that climate change is making bird migration more and more dangerous. This is published by the Hellenic Ornithological Society, aka BirdLife Greece, which has discovered a stark warning. And this is according to a piece on birdlife.org. The warning being that climate change is rapidly making the treacherous journey of migratory birds even more deadly. They say for millions of birds traveling between Africa and Europe, the Sahara Desert presents one of the toughest challenges, a vast arid expanse where survival depends on reaching the few scattered oases, I think is how they put it, and vegetated areas for rest and refueling. Once passed, much like the situation we've talked about with rural areas and gas stations, this formidable barrier, they face another dangerous crossing point, which is the Mediterranean Sea. The study shows that the Sahara and Mediterranean regions become increasingly inhospitable. These very, very crucial stopover sites in North Africa are beginning to shrink and dry up due to climate change. Fewer and fewer of these safe havens for birds are there and are viable. So I didn't want to go too far into that one since we already discussed it, Ben, but I just wanted to bring that one up again if there was anything that you'd seen in the news to update that one. We've got the Ecological Restoration Fund partnering with this organization in a £3 million joint project. This is led by BirdLife International and the RSPB. So they're trying to kind of figure out how to mitigate some of these threats that are posed to these protected areas.
Yeah, it's definitely a Herculean struggle, right? And it's uphill because, as we all know, if you, like me and several of us, are big fans of birds, the avian respects no human jurisdiction. I just like the gravitas of that statement, but it is true. You've nailed it there, Noel. As we discussed previously, human scientists are still trying to figure out how migratory birds are able to, like, how their internal GPS functions. And it gets into quantum mechanics, which is super fascinating, but also due to the nature of a migratory existence. And you see the same thing with salmon, right? Swimming back to spawning grounds, or you see the same thing with the mysterious eel. Due to this, human-made rules and human systems require a level of cooperation that is historically pretty challenging. I mean, it's asking a lot for policymakers and for world leaders to say, hey, I know we're fighting about everything else, increasingly, water rights, but let's cooperate to make sure these geese get home safe.
100%.
It's just, unfortunately, it's a low priority for a lot of world leaders.
Yeah, it would seem so. And it also, obviously, there are positive climate activities that themselves can be a hazard for birds, like the wind turbines that can generate, wind energy and be a very viable alternate source of electricity. And we know those can cause real problems for migratory birds as well. So I just wanted to bring that one up at the top. But to your point, Ben, about birds wanting to spread their wings and all of that and have this migratory life just by their very nature, where I come to you from in New York City, new legislation from the New York City Council would ban the sale of birds in pet stores citywide. A bill banning the retail sale of birds in shops across New York is under consideration by the council. Introduced by Council Member Diana Ayala this week. This would amend a local law 132 from 2024 by adding birds to the list of animals banned from being sold. If it were to pass, this would include species such as parrots, finches, parakeets, cockatiels, stuff like that. But in case you're wondering, this would not include poultry birds like chickens. Poultry breeders get an exemption from the bill and will still be able to sell birds. Only stores in the city would be barred from displaying, selling, auctioning, and transferring birds. It would become the very first piece of legislation banning the sale of birds as pets in the state of New York. And this comes to us from the president of Voters for Animal Rights, Ali Taylor, who's been working on the bill with Ayala and had this to say to Ben's point, and I think an accurate one, because I don't know, it's funny that a lot of listeners send funny memes about, bird terror and all of that stuff with me in mind, because I definitely have historically had this fear of birds, but I'm really only half joking when I say that through the enjoyment of the board game Wingspan, I really have begun to appreciate our avian brothers and sisters. Truly, it sounds silly, but the way this game works, it teaches you about different species, and I can actually start to recognize them in the wild. And while, as I've said before, I still don't want them to come at me or fly up in my face, I may well be on my way to becoming a proper birder. And in New York City, and Brooklyn in particular, there are some parks here where birders are absolutely in heaven. I believe Prospect Park is one. A friend of mine told me that that's a spot where he goes and has this little field journal and everything. So I might get myself a pair of binoculars and get to birding. But anyway, they
run the town. Don't mess with the birders.
Exactly. Thanks, Ben. You're absolutely right. But Ali Taylor, as I said, had this comment on the subject of migratory birds and how it is cruel to keep them as pets. These are birds that in the wild, they fly hundreds of miles every day. They're crossing rainforests, savannas, tropical mountainscapes that are rich in diversity. They are not meant to be sitting in your living room cage in Chelsea. This legislation, by the way, this is from a piece from a local city paper here called The City. This is by Chanel Tissera reporting for that publication. Legislation, she says, comes on the heels of a ban of the sale of guinea pigs in stores from the city council back in 2023. A similar bill that would ban the sale of birds statewide was introduced this year in the state assembly by state assembly member Linda Rosenthal, which is currently in committee. The piece then does go to describe a very similar situation with bird breeding to what has been referred to often as puppy mills. Very, very harsh, often inhumane conditions in breeding for commercial sale of these animals as pets. They're called mills for these birds. This idea of curbing the sale of exotic birds would halt the financial support of these types of facilities, which are apparently rampant in the city and in the region. Liz Cabrera Holtz, who is a senior campaign manager at the World Animal Protection Organization and animal rights group, had this to say: birds suffer right from their birth in the mill to when they get transported from the mill to life in the store and then to a person's home. Any bird sale drives the wildlife trade and increases demand for it. Animal rights advocates such as Cabrera Holtz argue that birds shouldn't be domesticated, which often involves things like clipping their wings, which does not allow them to, live out their lives as intended, and confinement in cages. They should rather be free to roam the air as they please out in nature. And I gotta say, y'all, I grew up with a pet bird. I had a weird brief period where a friend of mine had a pet cockatiel, and I kind of liked it and sort of got over my fear of birds, and then got a pet cockatiel. while, and then sort of got re-scared of the thing, and it became my mom's pet, and I didn't really have anything to do with it. And my mom did continue to get pet birds until she passed away. So that is something that I've been around, and I fully am on board with this. I think it is odd the amount of space that these birds have in these cages. It just seems cruel. I mean, having pet cats and pet dogs, at least they get the full run of the house, and they're not just kept in such a tiny confined space. These birds, by their very nature, are meant to flourish in these endless environments, out in the world. So it just seems to me to be inherently pretty cruel. So I'm on board with this stuff. What do you guys think?
I don't know. I was looking at pictures from one of the articles you posted here, Noel, of the Coney Island Birdwalk Man.
There are bird sanctuaries that are cool, and there are larger situations that I think are great. But yeah, tell me about the Birdwalk Man. He is a local character.
Well, he at least was in 2016 when this photo was taken of him with, it looks like maybe 3 different parrots, and he's just got them. He's hanging out with them on the boardwalk, so you can come hang out with the parrots for a second, I guess, if you're a tourist or something. That seems lovely to me.
You'll notice his bucket also says tips for animal rescue. So this is a dude that's also concerned with conservation, and he is obviously hanging out outdoors on the Coney Island boardwalk with these creatures.
It also occurs to me that this is city rules and laws, right? But as you stated, you could just go a little ways outside of New York City and you could purchase your birds. I just don't know.
Everything's legal in New Jersey.
That's true.
I just don't know what it really does.
A little bit of a drop in the bucket. I get what you're saying. I guess I'm just saying I think what it represents is sound. I just do.
Sure.
I'm on board with this idea of birds maybe shouldn't be kept in cages. I'm always reminded of the Maya Angelou book titled I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And it is quite a powerful image if you think about it.
Oh, yeah. I did stumble on something, guys. I don't know if you've talked about this for Ridiculous History, but the Coney Island Flying Man of 1880.
Yeah. Not on Ridiculous History, but we got deep into the idea of inventors who died at the hands of their own inventions. And our very first foray into that, Matt, ended up being a 2-part series on the sheer number of people who have died trying to fly.
Yeah.
And so I think
the Birdman of Alcatraz, right? That's different.
Sure
he kept birds.
He owned birds.
Yeah,
he befriended.
Well,
befriend birds.
Just according to this article from Brownstoner, and if we are to believe them, they are talking about a New York Times article from September 1880, where there was a, quote, aerial mystery where a man was seen by a bunch of people hanging out at Coney Island who had, quote, bat's wings and improved frog legs and a, quote, cruel and determined expression on his face.
That is
and
good writing.
He was flying at around 1,000 feet, they said. In 1880. What is happening?
Insane. What a daredevil.
It's a cool thing. You love to see it. Those stories that pop up, especially in the age of yellow journalism, where, check out our episode on lost civilizations in the Grand Canyon. Back in those days when your editor was a lot more into improv and just sort of yes-anded you.
Totally.
Whatever kind of thing you would say, as long as they sold the papers. Look, birds are amazing, and they are not quite like amphibians, who are on the front lines of mass extinction. We are in a global mass extinction event as we record. But birds, I would say, especially the migratory ones, are a key piece of Earth's natural ecosystem. Not for nothing are there so many idioms like canary in a coal mine, right? You can see a little bit into the future, a little bit further into the horizon based on how your birds are doing. And I 100% agree. As someone who also had to spend time with birds, as an honorary member of a local corvid crew here in this neighborhood, it's the same old argument of zoos as animal jails versus conservation efforts. These migratory populations are especially vulnerable now, and I applaud. I think we were often, at least in the West, we're often dismissive of moves that seem symbolic. This is very much a every little every little feather helps. You know what I mean? Eventually, the idea is it could break the camel of climate change.
That's exactly right, Ben, and I do appreciate that point. Really quickly, I know we're running a little long with all this bird talk. Thanks, Sloth, for getting us going. I just wanted to mention there was a piece that published this very morning in the Washington Post. Bird lovers flock to adopt parrot who is rated R, parental advisory required. He says thank you, and you give him snacks, but will also tell you to shut the up, said Chantel Rogers, who works at the animal shelter in Fall River, Massachusetts. Animal shelter employees were enjoying a quiet moment in the lobby when a yell came from a room designated for small animals. STFU. Hendrix, a blue and gold macaw who came to the shelter the prior month, surrendered by his longtime owner, is the culprit. The cursing only became louder after that late May afternoon. And if you adopt Hendrix, Chantel Rogers, the administrative assistant at the Forever Paws Animal Shelter, you are basically adopting Samuel L. Jackson. This bird's language is not for the faint of heart. It was a post that went viral on the internet, and folks have been literally flocking to try to be the one that can take Hendrix home, to have a little potty-mouthed bird in their lives. And it's funny because he apparently comes and goes. Rogers had this to say: one day he will call you baby, and the next day he's calling you a MFer, I guess is the politest way to type it out. He says thank you when you give him snacks, but will also tell you to shut up. The bird is rated R, parental advisory required, a real Sour Patch Kid if one side was sugar and the other side was arsenic. And there's a happy ending to this story. On June 12th, nearly 28 hours after posting the advertisement online, the shelter had added to the top of the post, applications now closed. And just like that, Roger said, I learned way more about most people than I wanted to. Shelter employees narrowed the applicants to the 5 most qualified and invited them to meet Hendrix. One woman who already had a room and toys in her house for birds she previously owned was the perfect fit, Rogers said. So I want to backtrack a little bit and say there are, of course, animal rescue situations. And we always talk about the zoo jail, analogy. The Atlanta Zoo is almost entirely rescue animals who would not survive in the wild. So I do think that folks like whoever this owner was are absolutely great and a big help for these types of creatures who perhaps are injured and would not make it in the wild. Rogers said the owner emailed her a few days later saying that Hendrix is beginning to feel comfortable. He might soon be ready to let out a new torrent of obscenities.
And he will.
He will. God willing, he will. Why don't we pause here? We'll go to a break, hear a word from our sponsor, and then come back with more messages from you.
And we've returned. Guys, got a quick gripe at the top. Old Man Frederick's Corner. I signed on to Facebook just randomly to make sure nobody's trying to reach out to me or something. Or, I missed one of those random messages from an old friend.
Sure.
And I did the wrong thing, guys.
What'd you do?
I clicked on something that was clearly an ad, but it was too enticing for me. The ad, which looked like a post, said, Dice Legend, going out of business, everything on sale, $0, just pay shipping costs. And I said, Dice Legend?
We're talking like 12-sided dice, like nerd dice? Yeah.
Like 20s?
20-sided.
8-sided. Who knows how many sides?
D20, D4, D8, you know what I mean?
All the sides. So I said, oh my God, let me get in on this while they're going out of business. Maybe I can get some incredible dice. I would jump on. I'm on my phone. I click through. I start adding dice to my cart like it's nobody's business because they all
right.
Yes, they all say $0. I'm like, oh my God, how am I getting away with this right now?
If it's too good to be true, if it seems too good to be true, was it?
Dude, well, I get my cart filled, and as of right now, I'm paying $0, and I'm getting more dice than I can fit in a giant box. I'm gonna have to buy a new box for all these dice, and then my head goes, wait a second.
Hang it on.
Wait a second. This feels too good. So I did.
Is this like the Columbia House deal? the penny cassettes? It's got to be.
Well, I did a little search and I found a couple subreddits that had specific posts about this company from years ago when they were going out of business then. And then years before that when they were going out of business. And everybody's saying, this is a scam. Don't do this. Don't do this. Please don't do this. And I closed the tab, and there's probably a cart still open.
Okay.
Did you crack the conspiracy?
No, I didn't crack a conspiracy. It's just somebody's offloading really cheaply made dice, and I don't know.
A good friend of the show who plays Dungeons and Dragons with Dylan and myself, a guy named Joe McCormick from Stuff to Blow Your Mind.
Love Joe.
He got a deal on a gigantic mason jar of assorted dye. And it's fascinating because I had no idea what a big industry this is. For a lot of us, this may be a somewhat familiar experience. A company you don't know from a can of paint will offer you a deal that, as you said, Matt, may seem a little too good to be true. I ran into this recently with some Corvid communication devices. I cannot believe that's a real sentence. But one way that this can happen is that the item itself, and this will be familiar to anybody on, say, eBay, the item itself is free or of negligible cost, but the shipping is extravagant, and they're counting on you not to pay attention to the shipping. And then the other more Sith Lord side of it is to obtain banking or financial details, or maybe even just your home address. So it's probably something like that.
It feels like it. It's got a giant sign on the top that says, hurry up, sale ends in, and it's got a counter that starts at 16 minutes or so every time you reload the website.
Every time.
I will just say that I am often taken in by appealing Instagram ads, and 9 times out of 10, they're good. But I have been taken by some like really poorly printed T-shirts, for example, or like just something that was not as advertised. I ordered something that was supposed to be a fully manipulatable lament configuration from the Hellraiser movies, and it looks real cool. But the pieces do not move, y'all. And in the video on the ad, it was somebody moving it around and flipping all the pieces like the puzzle box from the movie. And it came, and there are no movable joints in this thing. So I would argue that's a bit of a rip, but it still looks badass. But it was a bit of a bait and switch.
Micro whistle works awesome.
Heck yeah.
It just took forever to get.
Awesome.
And
I really want that now.
It's way better than my natural accent.
Anything that you do see on Instagram or things like that ship through Shopify or a similar app like that, you can usually rely on as being decent quality, something that's like legit. So just saying, don't be completely turned off by the idea of getting things like based on those ads, because sometimes they're really cool things.
Yeah, just do like you did, Matt. Realize that caution is often the better part of valor, and get out of the act now sandbox, right? Don't let them psychologically push you, and just check on those reviews, because odds are now, if you're seeing an ad, you are not unique in seeing that ad. You should always check, right? What does somebody, Reddit is actually really great for this. What do people on Reddit say when they bought that jacket? Or what did they say when they applied for, let me pull up a sponsored ad. An easy way to, this is one I got today, an easy way to gain residence in Paraguay. What do we know about that country? My sponsored ads are getting super weird now.
And sorry, guys. Last thing, I just wanted to say, I have recently been getting a lot of texts that are exactly the language from Scam Factory that we talked to Denise Chan, the incredible creator and host of that show, about exactly the same type of language, talking about pay ranging from $500 to $800 a day, and almost the exact same setup, and saying things like, "Oh, I found you through a recruiter," and I had not been getting those in the past. So just, guys, be careful. Scams are very real, and some of them are going to take more than your money.
Well, you know what's not a scam? If you happen to be rolling through certain parts of our great country here, guys, you stop to get some gas, fill up the old car, and you walk inside, and there's actually a bar in there. That's not actually a scam. I thought it could be, but it's not. At least
in what?
According
in the gas stations?
Yeah, this stood out to me too, man.
Cool.
At least according to our listener, Faye.
Hey, y'all, this is Faye. I was listening to y'all's current episode about gas stations, and I thought it was really funny because you guys are debating currently about how gas stations don't serve alcohol. I'm from Western North Carolina, and there's a gas station out in Brevard that serves alcohol. Like, it's a whole, like, there's a bar there. They have a bar at the gas station, and everybody knows you can just go to get pizza and some drinks and chill. And it's right by the river. but it started out as a gas station and then morphed into the bar. But there is a place in Western North Carolina where you can crack a cold wine on the premises, or they'll pour you a cold wine. You can buy your 6-pack and go on the porch and start drinking. So I don't know what it's like in the cities, but out here in the hollers, our gas stations are our bars. Well, thanks, guys. And you can use this if you want. I call y'all all the time, and I'm so sorry. Bye.
Awesome. Okay, see you there, Faye.
Call more, Faye.
Yeah.
We love
No
you.
notes.
Thanks for the tip.
See you there. I
Man.
really appreciate it.
So look, guys, I don't know if I located the exact one that Faye is talking about, but I did find a place called Riverside Bar in Pisgah Forest. Is that how you say that? And I was looking all around trying to find a gas station that just, says, at least on Google Maps when you search it up, hey, we have a bar here too, and gas, and it's great. But I couldn't. I did, however, find 3 particular places in somewhat Western North Carolina that I want to shout out.
Sure.
Because they just fit the bill perfectly. The first one is called the Brew Pump. It is, in fact, a gas station in Asheville, North Carolina, and it is also a bar restaurant, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
There's also the Old Haywood Filling Station out in Mills River, North Carolina. That one seems just super cool. And finally, the Mountain River Tap Room in Fletcher, North Carolina, that appears to have gas and a bar.
I think that's, look, a lot of people are going to say that's problematic, right? Because a gas station is directly associated with operating operating a motor vehicle. But also, we did point out that a lot of gas stations already sell packaged alcohol. So where's the line there? Are they near hotels, Matt? Or are they near places where people could walk to sleep?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't know. But I mean, again, any establishment that is selling alcohol like that, you got to imagine there's a ton of risk there. That's why designated drivers exist. All of us who have taken up the mantle and said, I shall drive this eve. We're doing God's work out there.
I love it. For some reason, when it's not like your full-time job, when it's an act of voluntary heroism, you get that little shine to your soul on it, right?
That's right. That is right. And honestly, the pictures are beautiful on some of these. There's an Exxon. It's got Exxon gas. So it's Exxon. We talked about this in our episode on gas stations. Exxon's the gas company that's providing the gas there. But then the other part of it, where the convenience store would be, that's a whole separate thing, like at the brew pump. But it's funny to see a big old Shell sign out there with a bunch of people hanging out, just enjoying brew.
I wonder if there's a service station attached to these as well, because now I'm constructing my own kind of headcanon origin story. Let's say we've got this amazing mechanic. Maybe he's the owner operator, or she, or what, and eventually they get in a fight at the local bar, and they say, screw you guys, I'm going to build a bar of my own at my job. I'm so tired of, walking up the street to you all. So here, by the way, if you come in and you need your oil changed, grab a beer.
Yeah.
While you're at it,
Well,
Please
it reminds me
do.
too, in Atlanta, I mean, I'm sure this is the case in other places, I'm certain it is, but there are a handful of Kroger locations that have a proper tap room connected to them. They actually jokingly, in Atlanta, we sort of have shorthand for the different Krogers. There used to be, of course, the famous Murder Kroger, which they tried very desperately to rebrand, but one was called Crowbar. And that was, again, these are just locals calling it that. But that was the one that had a whole, bar situation in the back. So I don't see how, at least regulation wise, it's that different. As we've mentioned too, grocery store chains often have gas stations as well connected to them.
I'm looking at the Crowbar on Glenwood Avenue in Atlanta.
That's the one.
Yep.
They
That's
call
one.
it the Crowbar.
They do. They leaned into it because I think
It started as a local shorthand. That's funny. I didn't know they did
right.
that. Mm-hmm.
Well, they're careful about what they adopt, right? And
They did not like
the
Murder Kroger.
Kroger chain really took it on the chin when they were trying to rename Murder Kroger to Beltline Kroger. You guys know I used to live very, very close to there. And the local population just didn't accept it. So maybe they learned a lesson and decided to lean into Crowbar. The Disco Kroger, as it was called in Buckhead, also started to lean into those Appalachians. Appalachians. I'm going to use that phrase for something. I just don't know what yet. But Faye, that's awesome. We got to learn more about gas station bars. I'm kind of ethically on the fence. I just feel like I have a lot of questions about this. I imagine it must go state by state. That aside, this is a great way to make money. You know what I mean?
I think so too.
Totally. Your income streams.
Yep. So thank you so much, Faye, for sending us that message. But speaking of ethical quandaries, we're going to play a really quick message from the returning champion, Chef Ben. I only call it that because I've at least been using a lot of his messages. So it's not favoritism. Chef Ben just always chimes in with the bangers. So here is another one. Parental advisory for this. He doesn't use language that is upsetting. It's just some of the concepts that might go into your mind after listening to his message may not be for kids. So here we go. Parental advisory. Chef Ben.
Fellows, good morning. Chef Ben in Chicago. As always, feel free to use this on your lovely show if you find this to be titillating in any sense. Again, catching up on back episodes, doing a lot of driving these days with my new job. So I'm 3 years behind, but I did just listen to your Neuralink episode. First thing that popped into my head about that is I wonder how far away from those things generating a local network really is, right? So like they would talk directly to each other via proximity, right? Instantly, my brain goes to military applications of that. If you've got a squadron that are all Neuralinked to each other, there's no need for hand signals or radio commands or any of that. They're just talking directly to each other through their brains. If that sounds like the Borg from Star Trek, yeah, that's the direction we're going. So that was my first thought. Now, I am also like nearly a professional dirtbag. So here was my second thought. And this one, maybe there is a benefit to humanity in this potential technology. Let's say you've got the Neuralink. Let's say your romantic partner has the Neuralink, and you take your romantic partner to Pound Town. Amazing benefit there, potentially.
Sure.
To be able to, at least partially, join with your romantic partner in receiving some of their sensations during your trip to Pound Town. You're trying something new, man. Who doesn't like trying something new? You'll know right away if it's having the desired effect or not, right? We're all about instant gratification these days anyway. That's the next step. That would be the way to get to that. You know if the thing you're doing is working. So that's my thought. I went directly from Neuralink, which sounds weird, to Borg, to Pound Town. You're welcome. Thanks for shuttling me around Chicago, fellas. Take care.
Demolition Man, first reference.
Oh,
Remember when they have sex in Demolition Man? Very casually? And they do something very much like Neuralink, but they don't have physical activity. So, Chef, it's always great to hear from you. I got to recuse myself because I'm cartoonishly pro-Ben.
Y'all, it really does remind me of the episode of Black Mirror, Striking Vipers, where I believe someone is able to gender swap and engage in virtual sex in very interesting ways that impact their, actual real life relationships because they kind of can't function anymore outside of this Neuralinky kind of augmented reality situation. It does address some of the things that Chef Ben was talking about. I do recommend checking that one out. It's season 7, episode 4.
Amazing. Just wanted to play that because I enjoyed the way Chef Ben navigated talking about all of those things together in
about
one.
Pound Town?
Well, specifically the way he described the act of loves.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. Chef Ben's the best.
There we go. All right. Well, that's it for now. Thank you, Faye. Thank you, Chef Ben. We'll be right back with more messages from you.
And we have returned. A little peek behind the curtain. Friends and neighbors, fellow conspiracy realists. We record our strange news and listener mail segments on Wednesdays, typically. And as we're recording on Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025, for our weekly listener mail segment that will publish on the 10th of July, here's what happened. And it happened just a few minutes ago as we were hearing from Faye. As of noon, local time, we are closer to the year 2050 than we are to the year 2000.
Oh, jeez.
The
Make
time
me feel old, why don't you?
I don't make people do things, Kevin.
That's
as
very
Pacino
true.
would say,
No,
devil's advocate.
It's a me thing.
But this is one of those fascinating things, at least on my end, I wanted to share with all of us tonight, because between the year 2000 and noon today, on July 2nd, there are 8,760 days from 2001 to 2024. It's a weird milestone. I don't know what we do with it. It's the kind of thing that would interest our pals at Mental Floss or AJ Bahamas Jacobs, the legend. It's strange. And I was looking into this because I remember a previous episode, or maybe just a conversation held about the 1990s and how far away that was, right? 1990 is now, gosh, people born in 1990 are 35.
Oh, God. You're doing it again, Ben. No, it's me.
So, just, so for my perspective personally, I just wanted to share that, and I hope everybody feels maybe inspired. If you're hearing this, you've made it this far, and can't wait to have some more new strange math in 2050. At which point we hope that podcasts are still being made somewhat by humans. With that,
Nope.
quite possibly, right? Or maybe our ghost will be part of it. With that, we wanted to share a message from you. Kevin, you gave us the go-ahead to share your message. I'm going to end up pitching you some cool official nicknames or monikers at this. But first, let's share what you wrote. You said, "Hello. First, let me say that I love your show." Thank you, Kevin. The way you take seriously sometimes absurd claims and dive into the unknown is delightful. Oh my gosh. Keep going. We love validation.
No, stop. No. Go on. Go on, please.
So, Kevin, you continue. You say, "More importantly, I have a suggestion for a show, the West Virginia Mine Wars, or the Battle of Blair Mountain. If you are not familiar, this was the result of an organizing push over 100 years ago in West Virginia and ended with all-out warfare between miners, M-I-N-E-R-S, and the companies supported by the U.S. military, which even used planes to bomb these miners. It has a lot of random connections to other things. Sid Hatfield of the Hatfield-McCoy's feud was killed during it. Mother Jones was involved, not the magazine, the person, the historical figure that the magazine's named after."
Right.
Kevin, you continue. You say, "There was also a literal attempt to remove this from the history books of West Virginia. The governor of West Virginia fought with the WPA to have it removed from the history of the state." And then, Kevin, you go on to mention the fantastic West Virginia Mine Wars Museum. We love a specific museum. And you sign off with, "Hope you like this idea." So with that, but before we dive in, I got to be honest. I think this is a full episode. We just need to figure out what show we want it on. Have either of you guys heard about this incident before?
It's new to me.
No, but when you first said it, I pictured it as the Mime Wars, which sounds terrifying and amazing, but not what's going on here. But please do tell.
Yeah, this is at the time, it's the largest armed uprising, we could call it, since the Civil War. This happens from August to September of 1921. It's pretty short. It's like late August 25th to September 2nd. But it fundamentally rocks the nation's understanding of itself. It involves worker rights. It involves, the powers of monopolies and government suppression. We're talking like 10,000 coal miners who strapped up and got armed because they were tired of the horrific conditions they were forced to work in. And earlier I did say miners with an E, but the way child labor laws functioned at the time, a lot of these miners were probably underage as well. These 10,000, this small army of miners, they beef up with 3,000 strikebreakers, and then that number also includes local authorities. A lot of this comes about because the miners were attempting to unionize. And, the U.S. has always had a complicated relationship with unions. It reminds me of, I don't know, this story might sound like an interesting historical footnote, if not for what Kevin pointed out, the concerted efforts of the powers that be to remove this story from history. And it seems like it's pretty effective, right? Like if you're outside of West Virginia, or you're not like some of our other pals deep into studying the history of unions, you might never hear of this. There's a reason it's not in your textbook.
I realize I have heard of this before, guys. I was doing research on this thing called the Molly Maguires, which was a secret society, but it was much earlier than this event in West Virginia. But it was specifically about organizing within communities of miners, right? And then having this kind of secret society thing going on in the background. Where you could fight back against the establishment a little bit.
And was, to be clear, I love that you're bringing that up, Matt. To be clear, the secrecy was absolutely necessary. The conspiracies were real. The companies controlling mining in particular at this point, and to a lesser degree even now, they had compromised the legal structure of the United States. So if you are maybe too much of a union leader, forget getting fired. They'd beat the tar out of you, or then they would just kill you. You know what I mean? Maybe your family as well. So these are very, very high stake things. And the conversation about the concept of workers' rights and unions has been so heavily politicized, especially in recent decades, right? That the U word feels like, depending on your personal framework, the U word can feel like a curse word at times, like saying Pound Town, for instance, right? But the reason it's important to remember this sort of stuff is that it directly informs pretty much everything you enjoy if you work in the United States today. Like the reason you have some days off, it's unions, right? The reason there are certain holidays are also unions. This is how effective the cover-up has been. Remember the formation of Labor Day? A lot of people growing up now in the modern United States, I'll include myself in that number, incorrectly assumed that Labor Day was not about workers' rights, but was just like commemorating the incredibly difficult experience of being a mom going through labor.
Totally.
I thought it was like another version of Mother's Day. I was like, I could get behind that.
I could too.
It's not, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but I do feel like that's a reasonable assumption. And so I come to you guys humbly here with this idea. Should we do a full episode on this? I think it's stuff they don't want you to know, and it's stuff more people should know, especially now.
I feel like, didn't we talk about mines on the show like pretty extensively in some episode?
We definitely did, because of just the absolute brutal conditions and so many of the deaths and black lung disease and all of that stuff, and the fact that that was an industry that really did lead to a lot of labor movements because of its inherent, brutality. I'm certain we did talk about it maybe in the history of labor movements, but this specific topic I think might be worth exploring.
Yeah, I think there's plenty here.
Yeah, we're gonna. So that sounds like a unanimous vote here,
guys. It was the Ludlow massacre when we talked about that
massacre.
That was back in 2024. You can find that.
Yeah. And that is related in the same milieu, but the Battle of Blair Mountain, I think, can be its own standalone thing. So we want to hear about that. We want to hear always about cover-ups and moments where the powers that be attempted to erase history. You could argue that in the age of information, it's more difficult to stop the signal, as they say in Serenity. Recently rewatched banger. But it turns out, as counterintuitive as it may sound, there's a solid argument that it's easier now to erase history. It's easier to change the present's understanding of the past. Heady stuff, folks. We're so grateful that you are with us on this journey. We got one last thing as we're wrapping up here, and it is from our pal Wayne. Wayne, you say, I'm super behind on my podcast. Work has gotten busier. Congratulations, by the way. So I can't jam out to your velvety tones as much as I'd like. I'll catch up eventually, but I wanted to share some random thoughts I had recently. Other possible meanings to the acronym stdwytk. Show them danger. Warn your trusted kin. Send the data when you take knowledge. And those are just two great acronyms to send us on our way, I think. So tell us your favorite acronyms. Tell us your favorite stories of hidden history, your Neuralink Demolition Man experiences. Please do rewatch Demolition Man. I put a link to that weird love scene I mentioned.
Seashells, right? Seashells.
Seashells. That's the poop part, which is also ageless and increasingly relevant, as anybody who's met a Japanese toilet will understand.
Oh, yes.
I never met a Japanese toilet I didn't like, that's for sure.
Guys, can I do a shameless plug really fast? Just really fast. We were talking about Serenity and Firefly in that series. If you're a fan of those things, get ready, because this summer, coming to a podcast near you, listen to the show Havoc Town that's coming out in August. It stars Jewel State as one of the main characters in that, who played Kaylee on Serenity and Firefly.
Oh, I love Kaylee. What a great series. Can't wait to hear that, Matt.
Yeah, Havoc Town's going to be a banger. Full disclosure, we are Matt, are you EP on that show?
Every one of the Mankey-verse world series, yeah.
And our good friend, the legendary Nick Tukoski, I believe, is involved as well.
Writer-director.
Yes. Yeah. And he's not paying us to say that. We are actual fans. So check that out. Thank you to Aaron Mankey. Thank you to Nick. Thank you to you, Matt. Thanks also again to Kevin, to Wayne, to Chef Ben, to Faye, and to Sloth. Hey, you guys, if you want to be part of the show, why not join up with us for our weekly listener mail segment? You can reach us online. You can call us on the phone. You can always send us an email, or should thou sip the social meds at your local gas station bar, you can always find us online.
Why not? Top off your social meds at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook with our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy, on YouTube with video content galore for your perusing enjoyment, and on X, FKA, Twitter, on Instagram and TikTok. However, we're Conspiracy Stuff Show, and there's more.
Yes, we have a phone number that goes to a voicemail system. Please call it and give us your take. 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, give yourself a cool nickname and let us know within the message if we can use your name and message on the air. If you'd like to send us words, pictures, links, anything of the sort, why not instead send us an email? We are
the entities that read each piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware, yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Following up on our conversation with Wayne, we might talk about this later. But hey, Wayne, this is for you. Little quote from our friends at Half Baked. I'm going to take your little Mexican friend here and I'm going to kill him. Yo, I'm Cuban B. Ha, yes, Cuban B.
Cuban B.
Conspiracy at iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.